cutting down that birch tree.
Yes.
Oh my gosh,
Yeah.
you know, it fell so easily, and Peter knows so much about what he's doing. So, you know, that was really great. So here we are in my backyard with Lark Leonard and me, Jody Turner, and we're going to be going inside to see how you make birch ornaments and creations. Let's see, Lark, you've been doing this for
35 years.
35 years.
Yeah.
You are part of the New Hampshire Crafts Guild?
Yes, the League of Craftsmen.
The League of Craftsmen. And
Yeah.
you would not believe the work I've seen here. I met Lark at the Walpole Farmers Market, and I've seen your work at Hannah Grimes as well. And you inspired me, and I bought one of your birds. I don't know what we're going to make today, but I know you've got a lot of things in store. So let's go inside and see what Lark has.
All right, great.
Oh my. You've got everything set up here. This is wonderful. Yeah. This is like coming into a little store. Wow, this is cool. So you've got these wheat.
Yes, I also work in wheat, and we're focused on the birch because of felling the tree.
Right, right.
But all of what I do is plating with plant fiber, and so it's related.
Yeah. Just it's
Yeah.
things that have grown. So let's take a look over here and see what we can find for different ornaments. So what do we have here?
Well, I thought it would be helpful to people because they'll probably be inspired to try their hand at what it is that I do. I put together a sequence for you. Here is a piece of bark. This was a tree that was 33 inches around. We felled this the day before you were with me.
That was the wonder
we
tree.
Were way up in the woods.
Yeah.
Very lovely tree, very, very thick bark. Yeah. So out of this tree, I'll probably get 4 workable layers, which is quite unusual. Yeah. This is the outermost. When you go to work with such wonderful thick bark, you really need to cut into more narrow pieces. So these are 4-inch wide.
Right.
They're not oiled yet.
And you'd never know that there's more levels in here.
That's right.
Yeah.
There are.
Yeah.
And this very beautiful sheeny side is the living rind that was next to the wood. It's my favorite layer to make baskets with. I do ornament work, but I also do baskets.
Right.
After it's this width, I then cut it to my weaver width. In this case, it's a 1/2 inch.
Okay, and now, would this be the same layers still, or would you have less layers on this one?
Well, that's a wonderful question.
Because this feels less.
It is less.
Okay.
Okay. The rind layer I have oiled. I have over there, and I could give you a sense of how a basket gets started. I know for myself, if I see a finished product, it feels magical to me, like, how did this ever get started? So I would be helped to see, all right, from the tree, you end up with a flat piece of bark that you press in the pile, then you bring it in and try to move it into 2 halves. I think that's a useful approach. Then make more narrow strips, and then you lift away your weavers. I have not finished splitting these. I will split these one more time.
Oh my.
But the layer that is ready to go is over there, oiled on both sides.
Okay. Well, why don't I go over and get a couple of pieces, then we can take a look at those.
Sure. So I find it very useful to have a 12-inch cutting board. For one thing, it helps you guide your cuts on the larger pieces of bark. And you can also set up a basket base when you're ready to weave. You do right angle weavers, and you can hold them in place using clothespins. Very hands-on. You need very few tools, really. And my one piece of advice is do oil both sides of your bark. It'll make it much, much easier. So that's your basic setup, along with a good pair of scissors.
So you cut those with scissors or with your cutting board?
Both.
Okay.
I'll do the preliminary cut with the cutting board, and then I'll make sure I have no little hangnails along the edge with the scissors. Oil both sides and make a point at both ends, so you're ready to weave.
Excellent. Oh.
So already you can
So this is more like...
It's like a satin ribbon.
This is more like, a satin ribbon.
It's like a satin ribbon.
Yeah.
And for anyone who wishes to try this, don't be discouraged. Some trees are a lot easier to work with than others. And when I began, I chose all the dud trees. It really,
So
I
you've
went through
learned.
about, yes, Peter and I were felling trees, and I was thinking it really should be easier than this.
Yeah.
So hopefully people won't be discouraged. But if you can end up with it just flowing through your fingers, it is such a joy to work with. And the birch baskets will last a very long time. They don't handle abrasion, so you can't drag them on the ground. But everything else they handle very well. This one, to get into the display a little, this is made of Swedish glass birch. When my teacher came, feel it, it's amazing, it's like a rock.
And it's,
It's
but
like- it's
it
just like a
looks like
rock.
it's heavier.
The
Yeah.
bark is more like our yellow birch bark, and that's interesting to me. It's a different species. This
And
is
this-
the white.
right,
I made
you
this
can
about a
definitely tell
month
the
ago.
difference.
Yeah.
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 And you can see the lighter color. Here's the tree that was living about a week and a half ago. It was growing in the woods. So
Yeah.
this will darken. The color will change over time.
And does this have any kind of a lacquer or anything on it?
It just has
a little oil?
It just
Yep.
has like vegetable oil that you would cook with.
Right.
And it will darken. The colors of birch bark are profoundly beautiful. I put together a little, yes, here. And I don't know if the light is strong enough, but you can see the variation in color. The darkest tree I've ever worked with was growing in a spruce woods.
And now, is that because of the soil or
I would love-
the age of the tree?
I would love to know. I talked with my teacher, Karin, from Sweden, and she had noticed that also with the glass birch. And we both think perhaps there's something in the soil. Spruce will send out, a lot of plants will do this, they'll send out chemicals to inhibit growth of plants around them. And we wonder whether it's either that or whatever that soil type is.
Yeah.
Of course, spruce likes water.
Right. Well, so that could be another one.
Yeah, it could
is
be another
how much
factor.
water it had.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Those are
I
beautiful.
just, I know, I never tire of just marveling at the color tones.
Yeah.
So when you go to make a basket, try to keep the tree together.
Right. So you use one sheet sort of so
I
that
like
you're
to.
all,
I like
unless
to.
you wanted something variegated, I suppose. But
Yes, deliberately variegated.
right.
I've seen some work that was, somebody obviously ran out right before they finished the piece, and it doesn't strengthen the piece.
Right,
So,
right.
you know, if you can plan it so that you have enough weavers.
Yeah.
So that over there will be, I'm going to be making a series of these little berry baskets. And I don't know if your camera will be picking up, you know, what we're discussing.
Why don't
but-
you show me, maybe because we only have a half an hour.
I know.
So
that's-
why don't you show me one specific project, and maybe we can
Okay.
go start to finish.
Okay.
And then if you're interested
Yes.
in more information on what Lark does, you can go
Sure.
to the Sunapee show or
Yes, or they can come to the Walpole's Farmers
right,
Market.
and they
Yeah.
can just talk with you there.
Sure,
Right.
sure.
Right.
Well,
Okay.
a bird might be a fun one. It's fairly quick. This was just my little list to remember the things that I wanted people to know.
Okay. Okay. So where are we? What are we going to start with here?
Well, I thought we would make a bird. It's a small project and it's fun, and I think it will give a sense of how the bark handles when you are weaving with it. I've prepared these strips. They're measured 1 inch wide and 10 inches long, and they're oiled on the side that was next to the wood, the living side of the bark. So when I open this out, you can see the variation in color. And I might choose a piece that's rind bark, because we were talking about the loveliness of the rind. The color and the sheen are both very wonderful. So I start with, you can see these are matched strips. You can see the little variation
Right.
up from the tree. And I use a fairly large, heavy pair of scissors. It's very comfortable over time. I don't cut all the way. Leave the end attached for the bird's wing. And these folk ornaments have been made for centuries. I think it's a reason that pulled me to this in the first place was the feeling that people have enjoyed making small objects with their hands, for their family, for their children, just out of materials that they had right at hand.
And these are beautiful because these are gifts that you can give, and they will last forever.
Yes, and they're a part of the woods here. We were talking earlier, birch trees do not have a long lifespan, but their bark does. It's very interesting. So if you fashion something out of bark, the tree lives on for a very long time. I first began making these, I think it was about 1970, and it's fun remembering, discovering them, and then sort of settling in with them. So what I'm doing now, I'm using the warmth in my hands to mold the bark. It wants to fold easily anyway, but the warmth of your hands is critical when you're working with it, especially with a small weaver like this. So I'm applying some pressure and giving it some warmth. You can probably see that I have 2 wings now.
It might be obvious to you.
Yes, all right. Once I place my first 2 clothespins, you'll see the wings.
Right.
And these clothespins I filched from my daughter years ago. They were part of her doll's setup.
So let me just show this. This
Okay,
is what we're going to have it look
There you
like.
go.
So there are
Yeah.
your wings.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, indeed.
And it is going to be beautiful.
Yes, indeed.
Yes.
So
So you use lots of little.
I use these 3 little clothespins,
Yeah.
and I've used the same ones.
They look like antiques.
They do. They only look antique because I use them with my oily fingers
Oh,
so
okay.
long.
Okay.
But it's fun the way sometimes your tools step forward out of your house. In this case, my daughter was playing with her dolls, and I realized, ooh,
Those
that
work.
would be very handy.
Yeah.
Yeah. So now I've woven
Wow, that
the
is
body.
quick.
Yeah,
Because
it
you've got the
does-
body almost already
yes,
done.
it does fall together quickly, and it's a wonderful project if you just want to get going with the bark, and you don't need a very large tree. 10 inches is not
Right.
a lot.
Well, this would be a wonderful project to put on your Christmas tree. You could load it with
Yes.
birds
Yes, you
and
could.
have an all-natural Christmas tree. Or I have mine hanging in my office at work.
Keep you company.
Yeah, it's kind of calming.
Another thing I love about the birch bark is the 2 colors. You have the side toward the growing wood and the side toward the weather, and it makes every project have the possibility of contrasting color, and without any dye.
Yeah.
Just natural, very lovely. When you get to this stage, you've got your body made, you've woven in the ends. I tug the inner pair. It makes the final adjusting much easier. Then it's really handy to have one of these, sort of a needle-nosed scissors, and I just use it to encourage along.
A little more uniformity and
Get it
tightness.
a little tightened up, and if you've oiled well, the bark won't fight you. It really will. It'll grab nicely, but it won't be making your life miserable. If the bark is brittle, it won't enjoy this one bit.
Right.
But this is some of the bark from the tree that we just harvested, so it still has a lot of softness to it. It almost feels like suede.
Right. That is the feeling that I get from it when I
Yes,
feel it. Yeah.
there's a velvety softness to it that really almost has to be felt to be believed. Well, here we go. This bird is almost ready to be a bird.
It looks so much more complicated when you're looking at this. I've got to tell you, it really does.
Well, and part of anything.
And you've been doing
is-
it for a while too.
Yeah, part of anything is the preparation of the materials, and this was a beautiful tree. really a beautiful tree. So that gives us a little project
Unbelievable.
from start to finish.
Mm-hmm.
And as the bark ages, and I love pinking shears.
Mm-hmm.
I have large and small. They're very handy for moments when you want to create some feathers.
Mm-hmm. You know, it's so funny. I never thought about the fact that you would have used pinking shears for that.
No, of course not.
No.
Because you're just experiencing
I thought it had to be much more complicated.
Yes,
that is beautiful.
And I will just squiggle a little handle in under the top weaving so you can hang it.
Wow.
So that gives you a sense of how the bark does handle when you're weaving with it.
It feels like it's got life to it.
It really does have life, and it will continue to. If bark is dried out at all, you can put a damp towel around it and leave it alone, even for half an hour, and it will respond. It's amazing to me that way.
Yeah.
These are some weavers from maybe 4 months ago. I was making some larger baskets. It's wonderful life to it. You can see it's got its bounce still. I save everything. I don't, even though that particular sheet of bark is done, I will find a way to use that in a good way, so that the color gets worked into a piece, a finished piece. These are stars. This is what the star looks like when I'm ready to go.
And how long does that star make, or take to make?
It doesn't take long. I realize that we just have a little bit of time to work with here, but it weaves up quickly. So if you
you start with the same process with the
I really
thin pieces.
do. And you can see how it is very much
so
like a satin ribbon.
Yeah.
And oiled on one side, and all from the same tree. This is actually, I'm so glad you asked. I wanted to show you. This is from one tree, and look at the variation of color.
Oh, yeah.
These are 3 layers. If it
Let me just
pick it up, it's very interesting. Here are the pieces. This is what it looks like as it came from the tree. And so if you keep your layers separate as you split out, you can end up with a whole palette of color. And then, however you decide to use it, you know. It's
nice.
very wonderfully diverse, I think. I'm just trying to think what else would be helpful for people to know. This was my book in Swedish that I began with, and of course, yes, I'll lift it. I don't speak Swedish. It has wonderful photographs. Here's the bark harvest here, and you can see they're actually working in a spruce woods. Naverslöjd by Karin Lundholm. I'm not sure it's available anymore, but this got me started. A wonderful substitute I mentioned in our last filming, and it is in English, and it is beautifully printed. Plated Basketry with Birch Bark by Vladimir Yarosh. And the toadstool can certainly get that in. But you can also call me if you start something and it's confusing.
Yeah. So, Lark,
Yes.
how can people contact you? Now, we talked a little bit about the Walpole Farmers Market,
Yes.
but do you have an email address, or are you interested in having people contact you? Or
people are welcome to telephone me if they wish.
is your number in the book?
Oh yes,
Okay.
we have a landline.
Okay.
And probably always will.
Yeah.
Mostly, I encourage people to try it, to begin. And once you begin, your hands teach you most of what you need to know. Yes, and of course it's hard to take the plunge. I remember wanting to begin, and of course I chose the most difficult tree that one possibly could. And by that I mean the older trees have lost their vitality. You really need to choose a beautiful young tree, and remember that you'll keep it alive through making a lot of beautiful things from it. And what I do, it makes common sense, but I'll just say, if I have a lovely long stretch of bark, I'll use that for baskets. It's sort of sacrilege to carve up a beautiful big sheet into small projects. There are lots of small places in smaller trees. So you get good at spotting the geometry of what it is that you're going to be doing. It's a small detail, but I think it's an important one. You'll go much further with the bark that you cut.
Yeah.
There's no care needed once you've made something. If it gets dusty, rinse it down. This was a basket made by my teacher, really many years ago now. Very, very lovely. Bread basket. The bark really lasts and lasts. So
it makes memories.
What's that?
It makes memories then.
Yes.
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 So
Absolutely.
you can always think, what it was like when your auntie or your grandmother or your mother made it and pass it along.
Yes.
It's so
Isn't it
beautiful.
wonderful?
Yeah.
I know. It is. I love the tradition. I love feeling that I'm making things that have been made for a very long time.
Mm-hmm.
It's a wonderful feeling.
Yeah.
Now, is there any area that we didn't touch on that we should address?
I don't think so. I think what I'd like to do is just in the closing, when we do our second closing, is just touch on the fact that you do the birch bark, but you also have the straw. It looks like you do jams. Anything else that you do, just because it all ties in, because it's all...
It's all part of the home and the centeredness in the home.
Right.
It's true. No, that's pretty much, I do the chair seat restoration for people, seats that have worn out. And again, it is plant fiber that I'm working with.
Right. And it looks so complicated. I mean, I know that you need to be good at what you do.
Sure.
But it's not as complicated as it looks, because it looks like you have to have all these tools.
Yes, it's very...
And it just looks like you need to have strength and an eye for what you're working with, the right equipment,
I think it helps to love what you do.
Right.
And that's true of everything.
Yeah.
But it's very true when you work with your hands, because your hands are listening all the time. Each tree has grown differently. It's going to behave differently. The bark is.
Right.
So.
Yeah. Now, do you have any problems with arthritis or anything? Because you...
Absolutely not.
No, that's
I'm
great.
careful not to do the rushing with cattail fiber. I don't work nonstop longer than 3.5 hours. That's
still a good amount of time.
It is, and it pulls very hard on the fingers. So if I ignore that, I start to get numbness in the fingers. But
and now you have $68 in it. I mean, to me, this is worth so much more than $68. I mean, I don't know.
Yes. No, that's this. It's really the price of the seat.
And they get the chair for free.
Exactly. I'm as Yankee as anyone else. I love to feel that part of something is a gift. So, yeah. I find when people have shared something that really means a lot to them, I remember it forever. Yeah, it has enduring value. Yeah.
Makes a big difference.
Yes. Well.
Any last thoughts that you want to leave us with before we close?
Oh, just that I love what you're doing. I love what this program is focused on, and it's just, to me, it's limitless what you can enjoy and spend a lot of time with right close by.
Right, in the Monadnock region.
Oh.
Well, thank you, Lark, for being in my backyard today. In my backyard, it doesn't have grass today, but it has lots of reeds and birch bark and different things. So today we've been in my backyard with Lark Leonard. She's in Langdon, New Hampshire, and she's been a long time artist. And what would you call yourself?
Weaver.
Yeah.
Sure.
Of lots of different materials. And if you're interested in learning more, please do feel free to contact her. We'll run some information in the credits. But if you are also interested, you can email us and we'll get you in contact with her as well. Our email address is inmybackyardch8@gmail.com, and we're also on Facebook. If you're interested in becoming a sponsor of the show, you can sponsor a show or several shows if you're interested, and just let us know. So we're always looking to hear from you. So thank you again for being in my backyard, and we'll see you again soon. Thanks, Leonard. Yes, thank you, Lark.